Michigan Out of Doors Online is brought to you in part by Tri-County Logging. Experienced in sustainable forestry practices, Tri-County Logging can help you manage your property by keeping your woods healthy and generate income. Serving southern and mid-Michigan for nearly 50 years, TriCountyLogging.com.
Hello everyone and welcome to Michigan Out of Doors. I'm Jenny Olson-Silik and we've got a brand new show for you this week. We are going to take you out on one of our very last trips before the coronavirus shut down the state. We were crow hunting down near Ann Arbor with a great old friend of the show. You won't want to miss that. We had an awesome time out in the field that morning. And then we're going to switch gears and introduce you to some high school students who shared a documentary with us that they produced for their film class on the Michigan Arctic Grayling Initiative. Very interesting stuff. You won't want to miss that. And Jimmy's got some other excitement in store for us this week too.
Well, that's right, Jenny. We do have another story on this week's show. A couple of months back, we were able to spend some time with the guys at Scientific Anglers. They're based out of Midland and they make fly fishing line. It's a really cool story. You won't want to miss that. Lots of good stuff on this week's show. You stay tuned. I'm Jimmy Gretzinger. It's time for Michigan Out of Doors.
From the first spring rains to the soft summer breeze, dancing on the pine forest floor, the autumn colors catch your eyes. Here come the crystal winter skies. It's Michigan, Michigan out of doors.
What a beautiful day in the woods.
Someday our children all will see this is their finest legacy, the wonder and the love of Michigan. As the wind comes whispering through the trees, the sweet smell of nature's in the air. From the Great Lakes to the quiet stream, shining like a sportsman's dream. It's a love of Michigan we all share.
Michigan Out of Doors is presented by Country Smokehouse, a sportsman's meat processor and Michigan destination since 1988. Offers a variety of homemade smoked meats and Michigan-made products in-store and online. The Country Smokehouse features an outdoor barbecue and bar. Details at countrysmokehouse.com. By RBM Jigs, a Michigan-based company serving ice fishing anglers around the state and throughout the country. Specializing in ice fishing gear, RBM Jigs manufactures tungsten jigs, soft plastics, and much more. Online at rbmjigs.com. By AnglerQuest Pontoons. AnglerQuest is a Michigan-based company building boats designed for comfort and fishing functionality. For more information, anglerquestpontoons.com. By Polar Craft Boats, offering riveted and welded boats for the outdoor enthusiast. Whether you're targeting fish or waterfowl, Polar Craft Boats have several models to choose from that keep you high and dry. For more information, polarcraft.com.
A few weeks ago, I headed down towards the outskirts of Ann Arbor to meet up with an old friend. It's been many years since we've hunted with Roy Oshbacher. Back in the day, we spent lots of time tagging along with Roy on waterfowl hunts, turkey hunts, and the occasional crow hunt. So when we got a call from Roy recently inviting us on a crow hunt, I couldn't pass up the chance. Joining Roy today were his two hunting buddies, Matt Lacombe and John Smith. As the guys got the decoys in place, Roy talked about our setup today.
This is a cornfield. That white line you see there looks like sawdust. It's actually hops and grains. The guy makes beer. And when he's done with the grains and that stuff, he brings them out here and throws them in his garden. And the crows have been flying here to eat. And as I said, 2 weeks ago when we had snow, we had over 5,000 crows here. With this warm weather, I think a bunch of them went north, and a lot of them are starting to mate right now and are looking for nests, and they're pairing off and going other directions.
As we got tucked into the blind in the hedgerow, the guys were hoping to see some crows in the air. It was a short wait. I was focused on one bird and didn't see the second bird come in. Luckily, my GoPro out in the field captured it.
You can reach and get them.
Hey, nice shooting, John.
No, that wasn't me. It was somebody.
Oh. Roy,
Is that Roy? Way to go, Roy.
It's a way to start the day.
Way to start the day.
As we waited for the next volley, Roy talked about different crow hunting strategies and his approach to hunting the crows here.
Well, what we have is we've got a setup for feeding crows, and we're not. The calls we're using aren't real aggressive, and the important part is the decoys, setting up the decoys. If I was a beginner, I would probably start with between 6 and 24 decoys. But just like goose, duck, pigeon hunting, you need to put some motion in your decoys. And what we use out here is the Mojo Mini Flapper we're using today, and the Mojo Crow. And for our sound, we all have a good wooden call. The one I have is from Woodhaven Game Calls. Works real good on crows, and it also works real good in the spring for turkey hunting, getting the turkeys to gobble. But our electronic call is Fox Pro. I've had a bunch of calls over the years, different calls, and Fox Pro has been the most reliable. It has the best variety of calls on the market, and especially for crow hunting, they have their own 10 crow calls, and then they contracted Bob Aronston, the guy that's killed 169,000 crows, to get on a mouth call and do another 10 calls. So that's what we've been using today. And as you see, the crows have come in pretty good. Well, I had asked this farmer here to hunt the last 3 years, and he always told me no. Well, this year, past summer, he put in a garden. Well, the crows got into his corn, got into his squash, got into his melon, and this time when I asked him, he was more than glad to set us up here in this hedgerow and shoot all the crows we want.
John, what do you think?
It's a little slow, but hopefully it'll pick up in a few minutes. And it's a lot of fun, though.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. It's yeah. Oh, here's some. Right here. Watch out.
Crows can do a lot of crop damage if not managed properly.
This farmer here had the problem in his garden, but in his cornfield, another farmer owns that. And when I asked him, he says, yeah, you can go in there. He says, because he tells me about the crows landing in the field, and when the corn is about that high, they'll pull it out and eat the corn, the kernel of corn on the bottom, kind of like a turkey. The crows aren't helping. They've been flying one at a time. And here 3 weeks ago we had thousands of them when the snow was on the ground, and they were coming in pretty good. But maybe we shot too many back a week ago.
We're picking away at them.
Yeah. I think by 9 or 10 o'clock this will be in pretty good shape.
Shot once. It's interesting, first time crow hunting. A little bit different from waterfowl, which is what I'm used to. But still a lot of fun. I think the wings make them look a lot bigger than the body actually is. They're not a whole lot bigger than a pigeon, I think. Yeah, see, they're not a whole lot bigger than a pigeon. They just look bigger because the tail's so long and the wings are so big.
Huh.
Actually, it's my first time crow hunting, but I think we're going to give it a whirl. See what they taste like. I'm sure there's a few recipes available online.
if you go to crowbuster.com, they do have the website. They have crow recipes, and they also tell you what, if anyone argues about why are you shooting crows, why you should be shooting crows. And I think here in Michigan, we don't do a lot of crow hunting. You go further south and west, Midwest, that's a big deal there.
Has it been a good season? You've been hunting them for a little while now, right?
Yeah. I've hunted them for years. This season has been pretty good. With this setup, and I've got a couple other setups where farmers put out manure, and I like to try and stay with the feeding type setup versus the aggressive setup with the owl and the Mojo hawk. I've got a great setup for that, but this way here, the crows kind of just fly into us. With the hawk, they're diving and they're tougher to shoot. Until they get in. We'll get them.
All in all, we had a great morning. It was nice to spend some time in a blind again with our good friend. Special thanks to Roy Oshbacher, John Smith, and Matt Lacombe for a fun morning afield in Michigan's Out of Doors. Roy, John, and Matt were all great guys to hunt with. We sure did have fun out there that morning. In this next story, we're going to share with you an edited down version of a documentary that a group of high school ladies put together and shared with us. It's all about the Michigan Arctic Grayling Initiative. It kind of talks about what Arctic grayling are, where they were, and what happened to them here in Michigan. You won't want to miss this.
Hi, my name is Grace Joe, and I'm Grace Bright, and we are both seniors at Athens High School, as well as the directors for the Michigan Arctic Grayling documentary. Our documentary was inspired by the Michigan Arctic Grayling Initiative, in which we hope to share the story of a native species and how it's being brought back. The creative process involved going all around Michigan, collecting about 25 hours of footage and cutting it down to the 20 minutes that the documentary is. We are very appreciative of the rest of our team, as well as for our teacher, Mr. Burns, for all those involved in the documentary, as well as viewers like you. Thank you!
Grayling, of course, were always intriguing because they were the native salmonid to this region, and they had gone extinct.
Arctic grayling to me is just an easy thing for everyone to love because it's such a beautiful fish.
They're just different. The fact that they were native to this region is really the thing that makes them special.
How does a fish go from being perhaps the most abundant in Michigan waters to gone? This is the story of Michigan's Arctic grayling, and more importantly, it's the story of how to bring them back.
There were prospectors that were coming up and looking for logging areas in the state of Michigan. Lo and behold, they found this whitefish, it was dubbed. It was a huge draw, so there used to be the fishing line, railroad line, and it was bringing people specifically to come and fish for grayling.
When people went stream fishing for trout species in the northern lower peninsula, it was grayling. That's what they were after, and that's what they would catch. It was what fishing in Michigan was in the 1800s.
They were extirpated, which means they're no longer here, but as a species, they're not gone from the earth.
Michigan has historically had a very strong conservation ethic. Unfortunately, that conservation ethic has kind of been diluted, and I feel like, especially with the involvement of the tribes, it's pulling us back to that traditional knowledge that the tribes can provide because they were here before us.
Native species is a notion, an idea, and a philosophy that's just grounded in tribal resource management and conservation.
The grayling's disappearance can be traced to a number of different factors, all of which were caused by humans.
Grayling are very sensitive to the gear, as they call it, and that means they're easy to catch, and that's a big reason to their demise.
We were literally
taking these fish and piling them up on banks 6 feet tall. You know, we look at overfishing now as like taking a couple dozen too many, but I mean, they were literally taking them out. You know, you could have 6 hooks on a line and catch 6 fish at the same time.
There wasn't a saw timber carrying tree left standing between Lake Michigan and Lake Huron.
They used to slide the timber they harvested, those logs, down into the streams to move them down to process them. And that put a lot of sediment into our streams. Well, that covered up all of the beds for the Arctic grayling, the gravel beds for them to produce.
Once the grayling started to decline because of this kind of habitat destruction from the logging and pushing logs down the river, and then this overfishing side, we introduced non-native fish.
Brown trout are actually from Scotland and Germany, and they came here in the late 1800s. So if you think about coevolution, brook trout and grayling, they've evolved together here. So it does make sense that they would be able to coexist well together in the streams, where brown trout weren't introduced until the late 1800s.
Brown trout is like the staple of a sport fishery in this state that brings in a lot of money and resources.
We've kind of got to figure out where these fish will play and where streams can be managed for grayling without precluding brown trout from areas as well.
Many attempts to reintroduce grayling have failed, but the desire to reintroduce the fish remains. There's a strong indication this effort, with its emphasis on teamwork, will be different.
We did not go into this thinking we needed a lot of different people. We went into this believing and thinking that it's important to reestablish Arctic grayling in Michigan, and the interests just swelled from there.
We're upwards of 40, 45 partners now. And its intent is to try and bring back this iconic species, the Arctic grayling, to Michigan.
I like to joke with people and tell them that the last time that we tried this in Michigan, the Apple II computer was the thing, and I have more computing power in my pocket than what it took to land a few people on the moon. So like, I think we've come a long way in terms of technology and an understanding of these basic fish principles on top of the research that we've learned in the last 20, 30 years.
I look at competition between age 0 brook, brown, and grayling. I look at predation rates between age 1 brook and brown trout on grayling fry. And I also look at imprinting at early life history stages, so really young, just after hatching.
We've learned some things from what's been successful in Montana, and we think that we were missing a critical imprinting period early on in the fish's development. And imprinting is that time where the fish learn for lack of a better term, the smell of the water that they were hatched in.
A remote site incubator is a device that allows grayling to develop in the water it will live in by exposing the eggs to stream water in an environment safe for them to grow. It appears the RSIs are the missing piece for a successful reintroduction.
We're really hopeful that by putting them into the streams as eyed eggs that are just about ready to hatch, that they're going to be exposed to that water. They'll learn that chemical fingerprint, that smell, if you will, of the water, and they'll know how to home right back to that, not just that stream, but that exact gravel bed where they were hatched. And in this instance, they're not emerging from a gravel bed, they'll be emerging from the remote site incubators. We're hopeful that this is going to be effective.
Exchange of information has benefited scientists involved in the project, but the reach of the grayling has grown beyond the scientific community, with interest developing in some unexpected places.
Danny Knopf is a renowned artist who really became passionate about the Arctic Grayling Initiative and bringing Arctic grayling back to Michigan.
That interest resulted in not just some original collaboration with some foundations and some fundraising, successful fundraising, but now that spilled over into another collaboration, which is the Ironfish Distillery.
The land and the water around us are everything to us, and so we do everything that we can to protect those things. Once we found out about the Grayling Initiative, we did make contact and started to talk to the people who were involved and felt that it was something that we could really get behind. And that led to us creating a couple of whiskeys that have the grayling as a prominent part of its production. As a fisherman myself, I would love to be able to go out to a stream in Michigan and fish for that wonderful fish.
Michigan without grayling was inconceivable, but now, thanks to the efforts of many, their restoration is primed for success.
They're a touchstone to our conservation past, our ecological past. And if we have to make room for grayling and you know, not have so many brown trout and rainbow trout. I feel like that's a great trade-off and a necessary trade-off.
Where the sky still as blue, white as before, and stars still shine down upon.
Well, special thanks to the kids and the teachers that made that documentary. They did a phenomenal job. Thanks for sharing that with us. And if we ever do get those grayling back in fishable numbers in our northern rivers, well, the folks at Scientific Anglers may just help you with your time on the water. Michigan is home to many companies that are making a big difference in the way we use the outdoors. Tucked away here in Midland is Scientific Anglers. This place is full of folks who love to wet a line and have been making fly line for years.
So Scientific Anglers is a nearly 75-year-old fly fishing company, and our primary core product that we manufacture here is fly lines. The company was founded in 1945 by three gentlemen here in Midland, Michigan. So we're in our hometown and kind of where our founding fathers were, so to speak. So in terms of, they were looking for a way that they could improve upon at that time silk fly lines, which required a lot of maintenance, a lot of upkeep and care to keep them performing properly. So you had to, after fishing for a day, you'd have to hang them up and dry them so that they wouldn't rot and deteriorate. And they developed the process very similar to what we currently use today, which was, and this brand and Scientific Anglers is attributed to developing the first modern PVC coated fly line.
So we're here at the beginning of our process. This is our mixing room, and this is where everything starts. Basically what we do is we take a raw plastisol and we add a bunch of different stuff to it to create our coating. So we'll add things like microballoons to make the coating float. We can add powdered tungsten to make it sink. We have slickness additives we incorporate in the coating, and it all gets mixed into one big vat and stored until it's ready to go onto a line. So once our fly lines are coated, they go onto a drum like this, and a drum like this will contain anywhere from 60 to 100 individual fly lines. The next step is to take out each individual fly line and get it processed. So this is our coiling station. This is where we take one of those fly lines out of those 60 or 100 that's on a drum and individually parse it out so we can further continue down the process. So we're here at our looping station. This is sort of the final process in our production where we actually put welded loops on either the front end or on both ends. Makes it easier to rig. You can put a leader on the front end, or makes it easier to attach to your backing. After this, the fly line's pretty much done. It goes in a box and then goes in inventory.
I asked Brad why fishing, but fly fishing specifically, seems to hold such a special place for so many anglers.
I think, not too different from any kind of fishing, because I think you can, you can take fishing as simple as you want it to be. You can make it as hard as you want to be. Fly fishing, there's a tremendous amount of literature written about fly fishing, and it's, I think there's, at one point, and it still may be true, that there's more titles on fly fishing in books than there is golf books. And I think, so one of the kind of our industry celebrities at one point said, it's interesting because people like to write about things they don't understand. And I thought that was something that always kind of stuck with me. But I think for me personally, the allure of fly fishing is, it is an art form. It's a great community of anglers in our industry, which is, it's a fun industry to work in. But you never stop learning. I mean, every time you go out, if you have an open mind about it, you're going to continually be learning. No differently if you're, a conventional, spin cast or bait cast angler for bass. You learn little subtle things every time you're out on the water. You never know it all. No matter how long you've been doing it, there's always more to learn. And I think that's, for a lot of us, that's kind of the drive. From a brand perspective of Scientific Anglers, I mean, we kind of take that to heart when we're looking at product development. We want other anglers to have a really good experience when they're on the water, and we know that our product plays a big part in that. So we try and look at that from the consumer standpoint and say, what can we do to this product in the design or development or the finished product that's going to help kind of pursue the sport more, but also that they're going to have the best possible experience when they're out there fishing, because that's what we would expect as consumers.
Thanks to the folks at Scientific Anglers for helping the fly fishermen enjoy their time on the water just a little bit more. Just another example of some of the great Michigan companies making a difference here in Michigan's Out of Doors.
Thanks for joining us this week for Michigan Out of Doors. Make sure you stay tuned in upcoming weeks. We're going to do our best to bring you as much new content as possible. We'll show you what we've all been doing while social distancing with our families and still enjoying Michigan's great outdoors. And if technology cooperates, we'll try to share with you some old VHS footage from 21 years ago when Jimmy and I first started on the show. Pretty hilarious stuff. If you'd like to see where we are and what we're up to, you can always check us out online.
Well, that's right, Jenny. Our website is a great place to kind of keep tabs on us. We're on most of the social media sites as well. And like Jenny said at the beginning of the show, we're going to do our best to try to bring you new footage as much as possible while still maintaining all the rules that are out there. Try to stay close to home, just taping ourselves or maybe our family members. We'll be bringing you some of that new stuff and some re-edited stuff from years past as well as we try to navigate these uncharted waters. Hopefully you're getting to spend some good time with your family during these kind of crazy days. And if we don't see you in the woods or on the water, hopefully we'll see you right back here next week on your PBS station.
Michigan Out of Doors is presented by.
Do you dream of somewhere bigger than your backyard? You can get there with Greenstone. Whether you want to hunt, fish, hike, or just watch the sunset, we're ready to help you own your place in the great outdoors. To learn more, visit greenstonefcs.com.
Michigan's hunters and anglers are essential partners to the health of the state's wildlife and habitats. The Michigan Wildlife Council is dedicated to ensuring our hunting and fishing heritage and Michigan's natural resources are preserved for future generations.
Closed captioning provided by Marvo Mineral, makers of Lucky Buck, deer management products including minerals to supplement deer diets year-round to improve health and antler growth.
When I wander far away, a dream stays with me night and day. It's the road that leads to my home state. I am a Michigan man. Changing seasons paint the scene like rainbow trout in a hidden stream. The white-tailed deer in the tall pine trees. I am a Michigan man.